Minister of Power, Works and Housing Babatunde Fashola has disclosed that the federal government is owing road contractors more than 2.7 trillion naira for projects executed over the years.
He says a large chunk of the amount was inherited from previous administrations and the chances of repaying them are slim due to poor budgetary allocation.
Well, we have joining us in the studio to discuss this Head of Research, Growth and Development Asset Management Limited, Shino Ulubu. Good morning to you and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Shino. Nice to see you.
Thanks. Yes, how bleak or bright is it really getting all federal roads to be constructed in Nigeria with this debt of 2.7 trillion naira and the chances of even getting them paid looking very, very slim, according to the minister?
Thank you. The debt of 2.8 trillion, if you ask me, is huge. The minister has said that it's based on or as a result of poor budgetary allocations. I'm still trying to think I think and ask myself, what does that mean? Poor budgetary allocation? Is it in terms of the amount that is provided for in the budget?
Annual budget.
Annual budget. Now, if it's in terms of the amount that is provided for in the annual budget, then we should not be talking about debts, because you would need to approve road construction before contractors can go to begin construction in the first instance. So for me, it's not clear. Now, if you're tying the problem around, say, paucity of funds, I would say yes. Now, if you're tying the problem around poor or cumbersome procurement procedure that we have, where you have approval spending for a long time, where you have people having to sit and wait for long before they get paid for services that they've rendered or for jobs that they've done. So I can understand.
But the explanations given were quite clear, really. He said that, yeah, the poor budgetary allocation, that every year they under apportion a percentage of the budget, annual budget, to the ministry, especially during the tenure of former President Goodluck Jonathan, who approved many road projects but released few funds. And in fact, in 2015, just 18 billion naira was approved for road construction, and just 9 billion naira was eventually released for. See,
I understand that bit, but I'm saying that just saying poor budgetary allocation, for me, would not give the answer. Now, maybe we should go to some more fundamental issues. Debt in itself is not bad. It's big enough that you are owing 2.8 trillion as debt. But for me, a bigger problem is you ask yourself, where are the roads? And sometimes you incur debt. You look at the asset you have incurred debt for, and then you are happy because over the lifetime of the asset can actually repay itself. Because we cannot shy away from the fact that we have huge infrastructural deficits that we need to fill. Now, if these debts are being incurred, and then we can see the roads both in terms of quality and in terms of the size of the roads that we have. But you ask yourself and look around, the roads are in very messy states, they are very poor, and for a lot of reasons. So for me, that's a bigger problem. So yes, in terms of what we budget for, it's grossly inadequate. A lot of statistics are in the air as far as what we need to invest for us to address our infrastructural challenges. But I like to pick just one. There's a survey that says that we need to spend $3 trillion over 30 years in order for us to address our infrastructural challenges. If you bring that to annual, if you assume that we have to spend equal amount over 30 years, that comes to $100 billion. Now, where the problem is, by the time I broke down the figures, I found out that the same survey says that we need to spend $14 billion annually. Now, if you now ask yourself, the budget of this year, which is 8.162 trillion, if you convert it to dollars, that's about $28 billion. Now, the capital expenditure of the $28 billion is around $7 billion. Everything we need to spend on anything called capital is $7 billion. Meanwhile, just road alone will need us to spend. We need to spend $14 billion on road over. For you to know that I understand how inadequate the budget is. But hey, if what you have is 15 naira to spend, you have a bigger problem if the 15 naira is even being spent on things that are not irrelevant. So even the $7 billion will end up going to either irrelevancies, going to private pockets, and all. We have to go back and around in cycles and see things. So for me, that's a bigger problem. So maybe as we go on in discussion, I'm sure you'll be asking me that what's the way forward or something. So
we'll talk about way forward as we get along. But the point there is, in this statement by the Minister of Power, Housing and Works, Babatunde Fashola, saying we're owing about 2.7 or 2.8 approximately trillion naira, does it point to the fact that it is going to be impossible for the government to handle road construction as Nigerians would expect in the coming year? Is that what it points really at?
For me,
an excuse? For
me, it's an emphatic yes. If you look at our story, our history, to start with, let's even look at the breakdown. Nigeria today has about, I may put it roughly, between 195 to 200,000 kilometers of road in the whole of Nigeria. 18% of that is under federal, 15% under state, 67% under local government. Now, out of the 200,000 kilometer, about 135 are untarred. Now, if we have spent more than 50 years in our lifetime, and we have only been able to get this far for a population of around 180 million, and for the kind of traffic we have on our road, there's no denying the fact that we need, but with what we are saying, and with so much depending, with even the 8 trillion that I talked about, depending heavily on oil that is open to external shocks, that is open to other factors that are not within our purview. It means that even we are at the mercy of a whole lot of. So I don't want to assume that we'll be able in the in the short to medium time. By medium I mean 10 years. We'll be able to upscale the amount of money that will go into our road construction and what have you. Again, until again we look at the structure of our budget again. I give it to this present government because 30%, that amount that I consider inadequate is 30% of the budget, which is like a paradigm shift from what it has always been. But until we are bold enough to say that the elements of our budget procedure or budget elements that are not really productive, until we are ready to scale them down and invest in things that we know would have stronger multiplier effects going forward, we will not achieve the sort of result that we need to achieve.
Well, the minister a few months ago, in fact, said that the state of the federal roads are not as bad as Nigerians are portraying them to be, really. And then he's telling us all this. And from what we've just said now, that many of them are still untarred. So,
I'd like to even talk about the federal road. Now, you apply the federal road, and then you are on a speed that is considered to be reasonable. And sometimes, if you are not careful enough, you enter some potholes, and then you say, "Wait a minute, was that a gully or something?"
Or manhole.
Or the way how big some of these things are. Now, to now make it worse, some of these roads, or majority of these roads, you see them you see people parking on those roads, parking on bridges. Now, if the lifespan of some of these roads and bridges were supposed to be 10 years, by the time you park on them, traffic is enough to even...
The pressure
of traffic is enough to... So, it's not to talk about when you park on road. Go to Lagos Island, you see, they even park on bridges. Park on bridges. So, maintenance culture around there is terrible. It's inadequate in terms of the size. But I'm saying that even the ones that we have are poorly maintained. So I don't want to talk about the quality, even at the point of construction. Some of these roads are constructed, and then by the time you come to see them, some of them you can tell, because when you're putting on, you're constructing road, you put, what's it called now? tar on this, and then you don't have proper drainages. By the time it rains 1 or 2 times, and then you see
washes off.
Washes
in
off,
fact,
and then
the tar they put, the bitumen put on the roads are not as, the depth are not as thick as they are supposed to be. This I was told by an engineer, a road construction engineer, that what is being done in Nigeria is not professional, it's not legal, that you wonder why our politicians and those in government are not talking. They're supposed to be very thick if done, constructed in a standard form, but that is not so.
They cannot talk. They cannot talk because those things are built to specifications. Now, have you asked yourself why you have a Tiger brand or any brand at all that's produced by a company in Japan? You have a Nigerian version, you have Benin Republic versions that are going to Niger, you have another version that's going to America, because the producers, or sorry, the sellers or the marketers, they just tell them, you don't bother yourself about the quality, just scale down the cost for me. We can remove so and so and so and so and so. I know the peculiarity of this market, just so their margin can be bigger. So this same thing could be said of politicians. By the time by the matter of fact, they even get their court from this. So just ensure that I get my court, and then who cares about the quality or if the roads give way after some time.
All right. Now, it seemed really obvious that the government, over the past, since independence, in fact, if you go to some local governments, some very old local governments, some of the tarred roads in the 80s and in the early 90s are still there. In some of the few local governments.
Some of the roads by the colonialists
are still there.
They built way
so
before
many
independence.
Years. Exactly. Now, if you go to some of this, you see them. But the roads they construct now, they don't stand the test of time. But let's go into the issue of the ability of government to even handle this thing. From the statements and reports from the ministry and even government, now it seems obvious that they won't be able to handle them. Now, there was the mention of the issue of tolls to raise monies and all of that. Is that the way to go if we have to look forward to way forward on this?
You know, when people have been disappointed time and time again, even the most honest of intentions could be suspected. Suspicion. This toll in itself is not a bad thing. We have sufficient examples, both within Nigeria and out of Nigeria, as case study, also as a strong case for this. I mean, the Lekki axis is a very good example of how what tolling could do.
Public-private partnership.
Yeah, I know.
It has to be.
Yeah,
so for the private entity to get back its money.
That was why it was sellable.
Yes.
That was why it was sellable. You know, because if you know, it's hard for, even especially now, for government to say that it wants to build road with its own resources, and then tell people that come and toll. Now, by the time you bring in the private element into it, now people are sure that they are going to get kind of the sort of
value for money,
value that they are intending for. So, if you look at it purely from government angle, Mike, we might not be able to achieve that. I think we should begin to look at other models. I thought that it was important for me to mention the problem with trust deficit that we have had to battle with over time. So let government hands off. At best, do PPP, public-private partnership. You can do build, operate, and transfer. Get private. But these things have worked in Malaysia. I have India as an example. South Africa is down just around here. I mean, it's worked there. So because the sort of resource, the investment that we need to go into infrastructure, the government might not have that sort of money in the next 20 years. So private sector is a place where the money is, and the private sector will not give you money without intending to get value for the money. Let me quickly mention this. We are aware of what is happening at the Apapa axis, where some companies have come together to, you know what that would do? Because they are going to get, they're going to get, it's not tax holiday now. They're going to use the value of the road to press down on whatever taxes they are supposed to pay to government. So, because private sector is the one building the road, you expect to see quality. And then you expect the probability, because anything that is handled by humans, you can't say that it can be free entirely from either corruption or
sharp practices,
of any form. But I want to tell you without mincing words that it's going to be reduced to the barest minimum, because people are involved, are private people. So do that, get pension fund related what's it called, products to get the money that's sitting with pension funds to put into infrastructure built by private sector. Do something similar around I mean, do concession. So these are things that otherwise the roads will remain as they are.
In fact, state governments have continuously asked the federal government to even hands off these roads, the so-called federal roads. That why would the federal government say that these are your roads in states? Why not give control to the states, let them take charge of the roads? And of course, we know that Lagos State has been lamenting that, let me do this, let me do that, especially for the states that are economically viable.
It goes back to how many states are economically viable to start with. A lot of these roads, a lot of these states are owing salaries. A lot of them...
because they want to.
Yeah, a lot of them still depend on federal allocation. So only few states can say that, and we know that by the time they answer of those, the federal government answer of those roads, they are going to be even in the state that they are right now, without having to get worse. Only few states. I mean, if you take out Lagos, maybe River State, and a few others, maybe Ogun State too, you know.
Anambra State.
Anambra State. But if you look at several other states, they are owing. They depend on. But if you back out what they get from federal allocation, from their expenditure, they are in the waters, because they are not, because their IGR is nothing to ride on my bow. So I mean, where's the muzzle to say you can do things? I'm not saying that should be totally discountenanced. No, I'm just saying that everything has to put in balance. You don't talk and push blames without willing to take up responsibility. So yeah, it's true that in terms of resources, the federal government takes the largest chunk of the resources, but also in terms of responsibility, you know, this thing. Now, until and unless we change our values as a people, I've said it time and time again, I want to repeat it again, that angels don't run systems. First of all, human beings will build the kind of system that they want to see, and human beings will run the system. Human beings have the ability to frustrate system, and human beings can tell how they want systems to run. So any system you see that is being implemented anywhere, more often than not, will have worked elsewhere. So no system is wrong on its own accord. So if you scale down as powers or devolve powers to the state, if human beings are not dealt with in terms of their mindset, their value system, what happens is that the sort of practices that you are seeing at the federal level that you think are not desirable are the things that you are going to find. All you are going to do, all you are just simply doing is that you are shifting powers from a level to another level where other people will still be subservient to other people.
So basically, corruption, one would say, is in the heart of some of these dysfunctional system in road construction. If you put some of the roads in Nigerian perspective, Benin or a Lagos road, the past 15-20 years has always been under construction one way or the other. This portion will be made, and then the other one is left, the other portion will be made, and this one is left, and the pressure on that road is something else. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is a hub that is supposed that, but the busy nature of that road has never been smooth from beginning to end for the past 20 years, as the case may be. The Enugu to Port Harcourt road is another, through Umahia, is another road that has always been there for so many years, under construction. There's always under construction. Then if Enugu Oka to Onitsha road is and
then the East-West road approved.
The East-West road
during the tenure of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and then we later discovered that money was not even budgeted.
Exactly. Now, if you go up north, there are also the challenges, but the issue of the north that is a little better is because the terrain there, the terrain in the north the weather and the soil texture is not as harsh on the kind of road. So when a road is constructed, for instance, it stays longer than in the south. Now, in all of this, Dangote has said that, well, the use of tar It's no longer feasible. It's not as durable. So he was recommended that concrete and cement should be used to tar roads because of our peculiarity in Nigeria.
That's a very solid point. I've read some articles and some reports where using cement and concrete is actually better than this thing. And I mean, if engineers are coming to say that that is better, I think they might have some point.
But
yeah, it's more expensive.
Is it?
It's more expensive.
No, from the argument, he was Dangote himself was saying it's cheaper. He said it's cheaper.
I know. I say it's cheaper. Even if you look at the cost benefit analysis, and you think it's better in terms of both durability and the cost the cost outlay, I think it's fine. If you spend more, I mean, in the interim, and then you get long-term effects. I mean, it makes sense. Now, but I need to say again that these things have to be looked at holistically, not just them. I think the pressure on our road is too much. We need to explore other kinds of means of transportation. Our waterways are there. It's phenomenal the percentage of the land space that is being occupied by water. So what are we using with what are we using that for? Then rail is there too. All these dual carriage vehicles are not supposed to be even plying out. I don't know if I've noticed there's some portion of the road that as you drive on those portions, you feel if you look at it properly, you see that some of the
it's not smooth
tankers and everything. That's the part that by the time they apply that portion over time, it's just the tires will have made some deep, and so that's how it is. So it has to be looked at holistically in terms of what model we want to make use of, in terms of changing our mindset and be sure that we are ready for the sort of development that we think we need, and then we'll have to look at it also from the angle of opening up other means of transportation without necessarily focusing on road alone.
Okay, well, Shina Olubu, we have to leave you here now, a financial expert. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.